The very idea of standardized tests is scary. One test and one score has the power to determine your whole future. But what if I told you it didn't have to be that way? In fact, what if I told you that's not how it works at all? Hi, I'm Shravya and welcome back to College Vine. Today we'll be talking about how test scores actually factor into the admissions process. To get started, let's go over college admissions. As we explained in one of our previous videos, admissions is a multi-step process. Think of it like March Madness. Instead of all the applicants competing at once, Hunger Games style, there are multiple rounds you have to progress through: academics, extracurriculars, and essays. If you get beat out in one, you're not disqualified, but your application will go to the bottom of the pile and will be reviewed when there are fewer slots available. The first round of this process is where your test scores come in. Colleges want to see that you're a good student, so naturally the first thing they look for in an applicant is academics, like your grades, the courses you've taken, and your standardized test scores. Grades are the factor you're probably most familiar with. They show how well you do in a course spread out over the semester with multiple deadlines and assignments. This can be very convenient when comparing students within a class or even a school, but beyond that, they become much less useful. As you've probably guessed, each school and even each teacher has wildly different standards and curriculum. So an A at one school can mean something totally different at another. So how do colleges get around this? Well, the first tool is course rigor. This basically means the type of courses you take, like honors, dual credit, AP, or just standard. Taking an honors course will show colleges that you're taking the more rigorous courses at your school, while a dual credit course will show that you can keep up with entry-level college work. But the main thing you'll want to take are AP and IB courses. Colleges place the most stock in these classes because they are generally the most rigorous, but also because they follow a standard nationwide curriculum. An A in AP Chem in Texas will mean about the same thing as an A in AP Chem in New York. Of course, not every school offers the same number of AP or honors classes. While colleges will generally evaluate your course rigor based on what your high school offers, it's still not a perfect comparison for students across the country. So the final metric of academics is, you guessed it, your test scores. Standardized test scores compare students against a basic college-ready standard. This makes them very useful to colleges as they are the most directly comparable metric available to admissions officers. So why don't colleges just base everything off of test scores? Well, as you may have already noticed if you've taken them, the SAT and ACT are better indicators of how well you can take a test rather than what you know. That's why they rely so much on timing and little gotcha moments like making you read through all the answers just to select all of the above. So once again, we have a very imperfect metric. That's why admissions officers use all of these factors when judging a student's academic readiness. Having a high GPA but low test scores will make admissions officers wonder if your school has high grade inflation or whether you're a bad test taker. Having high test scores but low grades might make colleges think you're just a good test taker, but it could also mean that classes at your school are more difficult than most. The key takeaway is that your test scores are generally the most important part of those academic factors because it's hard to argue against a high standardized score. Some colleges will even package your grades, course rigor, and test scores into a single score called the academic index. An academic index will still function as a cutoff like most academic factors, but since they're all taken together, a high test score or GPA can improve your chances more than if each one of your stats were considered separately. The academic index is more of a thing at elite colleges like the IBs, but you should check to see if the public schools you're applying to have a similar system. Their minimum admissions requirements may say something like GPA of 3.0 or an SAT score of 1120. In that case, you can still get in if one of your stats is lower than average. And that's it. Your test scores are just one way that colleges judge your overall academics. And academics is just one part of how your application is reviewed. You'll still need to worry about essays and extracurriculars further down the line. While standardized test scores are important, they are not a substitute for any other parts of your application. Once you have a high enough score that colleges think you are ready for their classes, an even higher score won't make up for lackluster essays or extracurriculars. The last thing we need to note is test optional policies. Since the pandemic, many colleges have gone test optional because standardized tests have been harder to administer in person. This means that you're not required to send in SAT or ACT results, but it can still help. Not having test scores will make you a bit of an unknown to colleges, so if your scores are close to the average range for accepted students where you're applying, we'd recommend that you submit those scores. It's too early to tell how test optional policies will impact admissions long term, but be sure to check out College Vine's blog to get the latest updates on this admissions topic and so much more. So I hope this video has made everything clear about how test scores factor into the college admissions process. In short, it's not as much as you may think. If you're wondering how other components of your college application are evaluated, be sure to check out our live streams and community forums. You can also use our chancing engine after making a free CollegeVine account to see the average test scores and your chances of admission at thousands of schools. If this video was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date with all our upcoming content. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.